Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to yet another episode of the BTP podcast. As always, I'm joined with Daniel Mulligan. How's it going, buddy?
What's up, guys? What's up, Poochix? Life is great and awesome. I'm so happy to be here with you. Basically, life is, as always, amazing. We're now going through the final phases, basically, of this goddamn pandemic. But the Delta variant is still causing some disturbances. But as always, I'm optimistic and life is good. Just waiting for life to move to where it was. And believe me, it will happen.
All right. That's okay. Good. Yeah. I mean, that's
that
very
came with a
optimistic.
confidence tone, man. That was a confidence tone.
Exactly. Not only confidence, it was very optimistically confident. So I like that.
Absolutely.
All right. Good. I'm very happy to hear that. All right. So, okay. Today's topic, we're talking about. So last week, we talked about we compared two phenomena called minimalism and luxury. Now we're comparing two other phenomena called modesty and arrogance. So modesty versus arrogance. So what do you make of it? How much modesty is good? How much arrogance is good? And where is which more important? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I see. Before I go ahead and give my assessment, I would like to actually ask you, Pujix, how do you find each of these? Because sometimes people don't know what modesty actually is. They feel like if someone perhaps does not, for example, want to have big ambitions, then he's modest. That's not modesty. That's passivity. So let's first go ahead and define properly for our listeners what modesty and basically arrogance actually are. So why don't you go ahead and do that for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point because we need to get our definitions straight. So, yeah, let's say when we're talking about modesty, we basically mean that it doesn't mean that you're not achieving anything or you don't want to achieve anything. It doesn't mean that you're not ambitious. What it entails is essentially you are comfortable with not expressing your achievements or your desire to achieve as much as an arrogant person does, or on the other hand, you can define it as you are realizing your own limitations within your within your capabilities, and that sense of realizing those limitations gives you a calm about your position, so you're less expressive. On the other hand, arrogance it portrays the opposite behavior, right? Arrogance actually goes overboard. Like you're achieving 10 and you're bragging 12, or you're capable of or you're capable of 10, but you're not aware of it, and you're going overboard and claiming 15. So that is how I see it. Unless you have a slightly different definition.
Of course, what you're saying is absolutely true. I just want to add a few points. Modesty, basically, as we have known it, basically, it's simply your ability to keep your basically accolades to yourself. You see, whatever social success, whatever, personal things, when you keep it to yourself, you're modest. So, for example, let's say you have just won the grant for a major, let's say, blue origin type of research because you are a cool astrophysicist from University of Toronto. Now, if you go tell the whole world about it, including your aunt who doesn't even know what basically Jeff Bezos actually means, then you're not exactly very modest. So modesty just means you are happy with your success, you keep it to yourself, and you don't really share it. Now, arrogance, as you said, well, arrogance isn't just necessarily about, showing off. It's more about your attitude towards other people. Those who are arrogant do not see themselves as superior so much as they see others as inferior, and they make sure they know about that, right? So that basically they are putting others down, basically, right? And that's called arrogance. And I believe that both approaches, you probably know, are none of my approaches. Why? Let me explain in a moment. If you're so modest that you achieve a lot of things to keep it to yourself, and then you simply can never promote yourself to acquire more success, and others might actually not know what you're up to, so you might actually miss on a lot of opportunities. If you tell the world that, yeah, I got this grant, man, maybe you can actually join force with, far better people to actually have a great life. On the other hand, if you keep it all to yourself, yeah, it's easy. I mean, there's nothing noble about modesty because it's easy. Just keep your mouth shut. That's it. You're modest. But that's not going to necessarily help you achieve a lot of the goals you want to achieve in life, because you are not going to be able to attract enough attention to promote yourself to gain better opportunities. And arrogance, well, that's a sign of lack of self-esteem. Arrogant people are not show-offs. They are those who show off to put others down. You see, if you have, for example, a Lamborghini, and it keeps showing that on your social media story, like, oh, check it out. Oh, I'm in my Lambos, by the way, guys. I'm talking to you. Yeah, I'm going to work now. I'm going to buy my grocery now. So when you do these things, honestly, Pujix, how do you feel? I mean, because these feelings are universal.
Yeah.
When you see someone intentionally shows off the Lambo in every single story, in every single thing, constantly talks about it, the color of my Lambo, what feeling do you have for this gentleman or lady?
Oh, I just feel like blocking them because I want to exterminate this post from my feed.
Because it's not attractive, man.
No,
It
it's
is
not.
not attractive because we feel like, oh, this guy's either lying or he got it from his daddy or he's actually faking it or he's renting it. Because people who are confident in their success, they don't need to always brag about it. So I am not a fan of bragging. And I'm not a fan of keeping it to yourself. Now, people do know basically if you are a big shot, but ultimately, do you want to achieve your success for you or for other people? It's actually relevant a little bit to that luxury versus minimalism, in that when you are not an arrogant person, you don't necessarily need to bring others down. Just because I am rich doesn't mean that others should, suffer looking at my Lambo when they have problem eating. So for that reason, I believe that the best approach, as always, inspired by that, because when you tell others of your ambitions, others people say, like, you know what, why don't I have such ambitions? What does he have that I don't have? And the answer is always nothing. Whatever anybody else has, including Jeff Bezos, you have it too. And imagine Jeff Bezos says, like, you know what, guys, I'm going to a trip. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's a very long trip. It involves going way up, way up, way up. And I'm not talking about, like, going to these Fiji Islands. And people are like, dude, what the hell are you talking about, man? Because in that case, be able to inspire others. So by sharing your greatness, you actually inspire the world and let everybody know, dude, this guy came from a very poor background and now he's got all of these things, right? So by sharing your greatness, you actually contribute to other people. But there's a huge difference between sharing your missions and accomplishments versus being arrogant and bringing others down and bragging to them, like, oh, check out my car, check out my watch, and so on.
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. And well, arrogance, I think, is easier to dispute. And, we all know arrogant people in our lives if you're not one. And we know how annoying they can be and how unattractive it is and all that. Modesty, though, I agree with you that it is still on the same boat. Like, you don't want to be 100% modest either. But it has, especially in some culture, it has certain positive characteristics. So by the fact that you are modest, you're getting some social points essentially. Though for
You're
you to
definitely
be,
right.
but for you to exhibit that I am modest, somebody needs to know something immodest about you, and then know that you're trying to not brag about it. So it's
Wow,
impossible to be completely
I like
modest
that.
and everybody know about it by nature. So
That's right.
let's try now. Again, I completely agree. You need to, and that's why I mentioned that you cannot be 100% modest and people know about it. That's just impossible. They just think you don't accomplish shit. So so that's that. But
That's right.
is there any place that we can actually say good things about modesty? Is there any benefits in any certain
Absolutely. I told
circumstance?
you,
Yeah.
moderation in all things and all things in moderation. As you mentioned earlier, if you are someone who does not overly,
Mhm.
basically exaggerate your accomplishments, this actually shows your level of self-esteem. Understand, if you really don't need to bring others down to make yourself feel good, as arrogant people do, then you do not need to always say, like, oh, please tell me how great I am, because I know I am. These things oftentimes stem from lack of self-esteem and self-confidence. And to the degree to which you are confident about yourself, and especially in those areas, because you might be very confident when it comes to, let's say, your professional achievements, but very, I don't know, perhaps insecure about your success. I don't know, with your health or fitness, or I don't know, with your relationships with the opposite gender. So it is very possible to be quite confident about your money, but very, insecure about your wife. It's like, oh gosh, I don't want to show it to any of my friends. That's not the wife of a friggin' millionaire. Oh shit. So in that situation, you have to actually look at your life as a whole and realize in all those areas where you are more secure about yourself, you generally tend to somehow not want to show off so much. I mean, I don't know. Some people just don't have a desire to show off how rich they are because they know they are rich. And ironically, those who are really rich, as opposed to those who, take photos of their Lambos 25 times a day, they are the people who actually are rich. That's why it's like, so what's the point? I don't want to show off because I know I'm rich. What's the point? But for that reason, so the guy who's insecure about his, for example, fitness now puts others down for being fat. Or the guy who's insecure, I don't know, some job, they put others down in the same career. So it really comes down to your overall level of self-esteem and self-confidence. And generally, those who are more confident, they tend to be usually more modest.
Right, right. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that, people pick up on that. It's and that's why I wanted to get at about modesty is that in moderation, as you mentioned. Now there are certain times, as you said, that it pays off to actually share your accomplishments, and I'm not saying bragging about them per se. You're in a social event, you're talking, is like, oh, what do you do? I do this and I've done that, and etc. Now you can be proud of it, no problem. You don't have to brag about it. You can still be proud
I
of it.
can just imagine you, Pujix, being arrogant when it comes to some talks about, these space flights and all that. It's like, oh man, this guy went to say, and like, so let me tell you something about the science behind that, you little shit. As a matter of fact, this whole thing has to go to the orbit from this angle. Like, I'm just guessing something like this, but do you actually practice arrogance at all, Pujix?
We all have our down moments, I think, and maybe I have done that, but I do my utmost to control that side of me. But again, I'm not shy to be proud of something I accomplished or something I know, and I distinguish that from being arrogant about it. Meaning that I know this and I feel good about it, but it doesn't mean that you can't. It doesn't mean that this is unique to me or a few people like me, meaning I'm capable and you're not. It just means that I have done my studies and I have paid attention to this or that, and I have accumulated this knowledge and I know about it. That's so in this specific sense. I mean, you can say the same thing about, something in business and income and worth of how much money you have. So you can say similar things. So in that sense, I think I distinguish being proud about your accomplishments or your knowledge or whatever it is, versus being arrogant about it. As you said, arrogance is kind of about putting others down, meaning I have this in a way, but then it doesn't stop there. It goes to say I'm unique and you're unable to actually achieve this or accomplish this or do this or know this, etc. So it has that element of I am able and you're not kind of thing that I don't like personally, because on the other hand, I'm a teacher. I know what people are capable are, given the right platform, the right scenery to express themselves and to develop themselves, grow, do business, etc. So in that sense, I try to. I think I'm leaning towards a modest side, but again, sometimes I'm proud of my own achievements, accomplishments, because it takes a lot, takes a lot of work and sleepless nights to study some of these topics that you're speaking of specifically. So I'm like, you know what? I think I earned my brownie points. I'm gonna spend some of them to feel good about myself.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that's where I lie in that spectrum. And I think now tell me if I'm wrong. I think you will have good insight into this, but I think there's a degree of so let me put it better. There's a degree there's a balance of confidence and modesty, I think, in leadership positions that actually can bring a lot of people together.
Absolutely. I mean, just take a look at the last disaster president, basically, who left the White House.
Right.
You can realize that in all top positions, we despise leaders who are arrogant. We despise leaders who feel like they are some special snowflake somehow, and everybody should treat them because they're so friggin' special. We, as a species, do not like these people, believe it or not. Now, there are a very small number of people who suffer from lack of self-esteem, who find these things attractive. But the majority of us, we are repelled by that kind of behavior, right? Which is why it's so incredibly important to know that the higher your position, the more you have to show empathy, and the less arrogance is tolerated by your followers, because that arrogance makes them question your true integrity as a leader. I mean, if you really feel like you're the best, why do you keep talking about it? If you really feel like you're rich, why do you keep showing off all these stuff? I mean, is it like a scandal or something? I mean, is it real? Or are you really, if you feel like you're the strongest and the most powerful person in the world, then why are you so insecure about these things? So people start asking questions. And that is why, by modesty and not trying to constantly brag or bring others down, you actually tell the world that, yes, I am that guy. And that's going to basically impress everyone in this regard to want to follow you, to want to listen to you. And egotistical leaders, arrogant leaders, as we've seen, will always go down.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that you're right, absolutely, in the sense that, higher you are, you have to be less arrogant, or rather, less arrogant is tolerated. So by definition, you have to be
especially
less.
in democratic systems. In systems
Right.
where people have a choice, or they can actually leave. If you are, not just for a country, if you are the leader of an organization, you act like this, your team is going to leave. They're going to find a job, in a different company, because it's like, I'm not going to work with this douchebag. This guy's always arrogant. He's putting everybody down.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to be with these people, right? But then again, at the same time, being, a doormat is not good either, because in that case, no one's going to respect you. Leadership requires setting boundaries, punishing bad behaviors, and rewarding good behavior. So if you're a nice guy and you say, like, you know what? Okay, you came, Johnny, you came to work 40 minutes late today, like the past 30 days. No problem. Probably you really had problems. You can't be a leader like this. You're going to lose the whole business. So you're going to have that balance between the two, and allow others to know that, yes, you know the boundaries, you are confident in your abilities, but you don't need their approval back and forth. That's just not who basically you are, because that's not what confident leaders simply don't do. They simply believe in themselves. They know what they're capable of. It's kind of like, when you get your, for example, black belt. Ironically, this is, I noticed something. A lot of my friends, when you get your black belt, you stop having fights for good. I don't know any of my friends who got their black belts, or who, finished tough trainings, for example, like for example, the underwater demolition or whatever it is. When these guys, finish some of the toughest trainings out there, ironically, after they gain that confidence that, dude, I'm now special forces, or dude, I got now the black belt of karate or something. Once they have that confidence in them, for some odd reason, most of them never get into a fight ever again, because like the way they carry themselves show that. And I think we could be like that black belt in all areas of life: financial, relationship, knowledge, wisdom. Once you have that black belt of wisdom, for example, you're not going to be sound like, oh, I am so wise. Please tell me I'm wise. I'm waiting. Nobody. Oh boy. So that approach simply shows that you're faking it. That you're no real stuff, right? Which is why I always look like, Dan, I'm afraid of making posts on social media to share my ideas. I say, why? I say, there's no one's going to like them. I say, why do you need their likes? Like, but if nobody likes me my posts, then I feel like I'm not important enough. It's like, dude, talk to yourself as if you're talking, in a vacuum or something. Ignore that. And please be aware that it's not about being liked by their side, but by being heard, which is why I always tell people, views are always more important in social media than likes. Likes mean nothing. Views are what generates. Think of, for example, top platforms. Top platforms and top, influencers are the ones who don't look to be liked. They say what they want. And ironically, that attracts more attention, right? But those who are like, well, the guy says, well, if I take, my shirt off and just take muscle photos, I get a lot of likes. So I'm going to keep doing that. So they can never express themselves. Or the girl says, okay, if I just get bikini shots, then I will get a lot of likes. So their, pages become, boring and meaningless. But once you ignore that approach and say, you know what, I want to express my thoughts. That's it. I don't want likes. that is that black belt, if you will. That's the level of confidence. And ironically, you attract more attention that way as well in all areas of life.
Yeah, I think actually absolutely right because especially with the advent of technology, social media, and on the other hand, podcasts, it like the best podcasts are the most sincere and real ones. The least super structured, like a corporate media level structured. The more sincere it seems that the more attention it gets. It's there's a thirst for sincerity. It seems
Exactly.
there is, yeah, I think I completely agree with that in my personal experience. Anyways, okay, so we talked a lot about, and I think we're honing on a point on many of our episodes about many things, and that is there's a balance required, and finding the point of balance
Absolutely.
is the hard part, is the difficulty, and you never get there without trial and error. You never get there without getting your hands dirty. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter what you do. You ultimately need to actually do it and see, oh, wow, I was
Absolutely.
too arrogant here. Oh, wow, I was too modest. Nobody knew what I achieved. So, um,
Wow.
so I think that there's a good segue to say to bring this show to its conclusion. Is there anything you think we have missed that requires further brush up?
Well, first of all, good topics as always, Pujix. And as we compared arrogance versus modesty, we realized that in the end, what truly matters is a sense of balance. There's nothing wrong with being, satisfied and happy with who you are. There's nothing wrong with loving your success because that's called self-love. And self-love is the foundation for loving others. If you don't really love
Mhm.
yourself, you can't love other people. If you don't really like and aren't proud of your work, how do you want others to be inspired by your work? So you should like that. But at the same time, being arrogant and trying to show off, especially by bringing others down, that is a short-term approach to gain that feeling of self-esteem, which we all look for. It's like in the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? So for that reason, we believe that it's better to fully stop with arrogance. Arrogance is always a bad thing. There is no such thing as moderate arrogance. Arrogance
Right.
itself means you bring others down. So it must be removed. Modesty, on the other hand, should be practiced with moderation, because if you're too modest, you're not helping anybody, because in that case you will actually not inspire others. Now if you are modest about your finances, you're definitely helping yourself by avoiding pay as much taxes as most ultra wealthy do, uh, which I'm a fan of, by the way, because I mean in that one case you really probably don't want to show off. But generally, if you have other ideas, you want to understand that those who are the most confident usually aren't always talking about that stuff. They aren't talking about their achievements. Rather, they're actually helping others to become achievers themselves, right? So by putting this focus on them and not on you, you actually become a lot more confident and a lot more popular among those around you.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. I think that was a good conclusion. It had hints of what we didn't talk about and a lot of what we talked about. Thanks as always, Dan, for joining us and having a
My
conversation
pleasure,
with
my
us.
man.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
thank you everybody for participating, listening, tuning in. I hope you participate by leaving comments, suggestions, topics that you want to hear about in the comment section or directly to me or Dan through social media. You know where to find us. It's in the show notes as well. And until later episode, have a good one.